Hello, folks. How you doing today? Well, folks, welcome to this session. In this session, folks, we will be talking about the most important things that we have been discussing in the last five session, right? To be ready for the exam, right? So, the objectives that we got for these sessions, folks, are number one, to differentiate the foundational concept of ethics, morality, moral judgments, and ethical paradigms within their social and professional context. Number two, interpret ethical situations critically, recognizing the role of historicity, transcendence, justice, and moral reasoning in decision making. And the last one, to demonstrate awareness of civic and professional responsibility, including ethical coherence in both institutional and digital environments. Okay. As you know, folks, over these five sessions, we have worked on understanding ethics and not simply as a set of rules, right? But as a philosophical discipline that critically examines the moral principles guiding the human behaviors, right? So we also have folks discussed how ethics operates within society and professional life, and why legality or social acceptance doesn't automatically, right, mean moral correctness. Besides that, folks, as you remember, we also have analyzed the human person as a moral agent, right? As a moral subject, someone who shaped by his historicity and context, yet capable of reflection, freedom, and growth, right? We also have explored, folks, how moral judgments are formed, especially in situations where important values come into conflict, right? And some of the scenarios that we have been discussing related to this in some of the previous sessions, right? And then finally, folks, we have studied the major ethical paradigms, right? As you know, the ontology, the consequentialisms, and the virtue ethics, right? And the theories of justice, right? They are frameworks for decision making, and we reflected civic responsibility and professional conduct, right? Particularly in digital environments where ethical coherence is essential. Some of the scenarios that we have been discussing in the previous sessions, right? So, in this unit, folks, ethics and paradigms. So after the exams, so with this exam, folks, we're gonna end up this unit, okay? And remember that in this unit, we begin by understanding ethics as a philosophical discipline, right? And remember that ethics is not simply about rules or laws. It is a critical reflection on moral principles that guide human behaviors. While another important thing that we have discussed is the morality, which refers to the norms and practices people actually live by, right? Also remember, folks, that ethics goes a step further by questioning, analyzing, and evaluating those norms, okay? We also have explored, folks, as you can appreciate here on the presentation, the relationship between ethics and society, right? Remember that ethical reflection helps regulate coexistence, evaluate institutions, and promote responsibility. Just because something is socially accepted, right, or legally permitted, doesn't automatically make it ethically justified, right? We also have analyzed, folks, the human person. Okay, the human person as a moral subject, as a moral agent, as we said before, the idea of historicity. Remember that this one remind us that individuals are shaped by their historical and social context, right? However, we also have uh, talked about transcendence, which highlight our capacity, right, to go beyond those circumstances through reflections and responsible choice. Remember that as Human beings, we are not merely products of our environments, right? We are moral agents capable of growth and accountability, right? We also have studied, folks, moral judgment and philosophical ethics, right? Remember that a moral judgment evaluate actions as right or wrong, as good or evil, something that the terms that we use in the first virtual sessions and requires rational justification. Also, we have folks, also we have discussed about ethical dilemmas. Remember that this one arises when important principles conflict, right? Demanding careful reasoning rather than emotional reaction or blind evidence, right? We also have folks here in this slide. We also have examined the major ethical paradigms. As you can appreciate here, we got the ontological ethics, focuses on duties and principles, right? We also have the utilitarianisms, also known as consequentialisms, that evaluates actions based on outcomes, right? And the last one that we have discussed is virtue ethics, right? Which emphasizes character formation. Don't forget that, for folks, okay? Virtual ethics emphasizes character formation. And remember that these paradigms serves as analytical frameworks for evaluating moral decisions, right? And finally, folks, in the last session, we addressed civic and professional ethics, especially in contemporary context, right? Remember that civic ethics concerns our responsibilities within the community. Professional ethics introduces role-specific standards that guide conduct, right? Remember that we were discussing some scenarios related to this. And in today's digital world, folks, remember that ethical responsibility extend to social networks, right? Where integrity, transparency, and respect for privacy are essentials, right? So all of these things, folks, we have been discussing, as I mentioned before, in the last five virtual sessions. Some of the things that are gonna covered in the first exams. Okay, so you can also, if you forgot something, you can also check, folks, each session on the platform, each lessons that we got there, just to refresh your mind. Okay. Now, here, folks, we got an scenario. Okay, an scenario, and we got two questions. Okay, let's see. The scenario says. A senior manager at a private company discovers that a widely used internal digital platform collects more personal data from employees than necessary. The practice is legal and increases productivity metrics. However, employees are unaware of the extent of data monitoring. The manager must decide whether to remain silent since the practice is legal and beneficial for efficiency, or inform employees and advocate for transparent data policies even if productivity decreases and leadership disapproves. Then we got the first question, folks, that says, which ethical principle is more directly at stake in this scenario? And as possible answer, we got maximization of institutional profit, transparency, and respect for people, cultural conformity, and avoidance of public criticisms. What do you think is the right answer for this one? Well, in this case, folks, I would say it's the letter B, transparency and respect for reasons. Remember that the central issue concerns employee autonomy, right? Informed consent and respect for individuals, right? Not merely productivity or profit, right? So I would say letter B. What do you think? Now, let's analyze the second question. From a deontological perspective, the most defensible action would be to prioritize productivity outcomes, protect employee autonomy and informed consent, follow majority preference with leadership, or avoid conflict with superiors. Remember that in this one, something important that is mentioned at the beginning, the ontological perspective. So you need to analyze the purpose of these ethical paradigms. Okay. What do you think is the right answer for this? It could be the number one, the letter A, prioritize productivity outcomes. No, because remember that the ethical theory or the ethical paradigms, which is related to the outcomes, is the which one? Okay, let's see. I would say, folks, that the right answer for this is letter B, to protect employee autonomy and informed consent. Why? Because remember, the ontology, folks, prioritizes duties and respect for peoples, right? Over consequences such as productivity gains. Okay. So, folks, that has been all for this one. Okay. So, as I said before, if you forgot something, you can check the platform, you can check every session and just to refresh your mind and be ready for the exam. Something important that I would like to mention, folks, here is that before doing the exam, please carefully analyze the instructions. Okay. Please be sure what you're gonna do first and then proceed to answer such exam. Okay. So, folks, good luck on the exam. Okay. Bye bye.